President Chin, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, December 16th, 2021. Today I am opening up, calling to order the San Mateo Foster City School Board Board of Trustees meeting. Sorry, last one of the year. We are calling everyone to order at 5:30. And we are immediately recessing to closed session for two items. Item 2.1, which is Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Discipline, Dismissal, and Release. And item 2.2, Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, Superintendent. Following that, we will reconvene our regularly scheduled meeting at 6:30. So stay tuned. Thanks.
Okay. President Chin, go ahead.
Hey, good evening, everyone. It's now 6:36 and we are reconvening our board meeting. We are coming out of closed session with nothing to report. First item on the agenda is our flag salute. So if everyone would please rise and unmute and say the flag salute with me, please. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We are going to our roll call. Trustee Corzo.
Present.
Trustee Proctor.
Here.
Trustee Watkins.
Here.
And Trustee Warren.
Here.
Great, thank you. And I am here as well. Item 3.4, we have the approval of the agenda for December 16th, 2021. Does anybody have any comments, suggestions, changes?
Motion to approve tonight's agenda. Second.
Great, thank you, Trustee Watkins for the motion, Trustee Corzo for the second. Roll call vote, Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Warren. Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
Yes, and I'll vote yes as well. Item 3.5, approval of the minutes, November 18th. Does anybody have any comments, changes?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from November 18th.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Proctor for the motion, Trustee Warren for the second. Roll call vote, Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. Okay, before we actually recess to our reorganization meeting, our annual reorganization meeting, we have some special guests here. And so I'd love for, is it Naomi or Caleb to make the introduction, and we'll go from there. Can you guys hang on 1 second? We want to make sure that our audience online can see you. Yeah, sorry, Caleb and Naomi, would you mind stating that one more time for the audience at the podium? Yeah, sorry, take two.
Take two.
Take two. So here now you're visible. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Caleb Bowers, the principal at Bowditch. Naomi is going to introduce the Bowditch Chamber Orchestra.
Today we are performing God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bowditch. Thank you. Yes, stay up.
Literally the best.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming. Happy holidays. Okay. Are we good to go? Okay, you guys ready? Okay, thank you. I wish maybe we'll provide Caleb some comments when he comes back. They all kind of just picked up and left, but they were great. Okay, we're on. I feel like so boring, such a boring meeting now. We're going to reconvene to our regular meeting and convene our annual reorganization meeting. So with that, we are going to start. This is the time where we reorganize, have new officers, and we generally move seats, but we won't tonight. We'll save that for the next one. So first item on the agenda is the elections of officers. I'll just like to say that this year has been extremely crazy for us, to say the least. But I am happy with my last act as the president to officially nominate Allison Proctor to be our next president of the school board. So that's my motion.
I'll second that motion.
Great, thank you. For that, we'll do a roll call vote. Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Sure, yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Warren,
Yes.
and I will vote yes as well. So thank you. Congratulations, Trustee Proctor. President
you.
Proctor now.
Thank you. Can I make a motion? Okay, I would like to make a motion to elect Trustee Watkins as Vice President.
I'll second that. Oh, I guess that's actually officially now yours.
Oh, okay, let's do roll call vote. Trustee Corzo,
Yes.
Trustee Chin,
Yes.
Trustee Watkins,
Sure.
Trustee Warren,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. Congratulations,
Yes.
and thank you.
Do you want to keep going?
It, so I believe isn't there one other position? It's the
The clerk.
yes. So we do have any, well, I don't want to speak for you, Madam President. Do we need nominations for the clerk? Or does anyone, Trustee Watkins, do you want to make a nomination for the clerk? Or
Sure.
does anyone want to volunteer to be the clerk?
I'm happy to volunteer to be the clerk. I just want to, I guess normally how we would do it is, isn't there something about like, oh, we didn't have an actual, we didn't have votes. Because I remember that's how it was before, that based on your votes.
We had historically done the president goes ahead and nominates the president, the new president then nominates the vice president, and then the vice president nominates the clerk. But we do not have to do that. That has happened the last few years, but we don't have to do that. And actually, I think the same sort of deer in the headlights that we had is the same one that I had last time too, which is like, oh yeah, we have to have a clerk. So if you're willing, then I would nominate Trustee Corzo to be the clerk.
I will second that.
Do you want me to continue then with that and until we reconvene? Okay, fine. All right, so I made the motion for Trustee Corzo to be the clerk, Trustee Corzo, Trustee Proctor or President Proctor seconded. We'll do the roll call vote. Trustee Corzo.
Sure.
President Proctor,
Yes.
Vice President Watkins,
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Sure.
And I will vote yes as well. Okay, so that was the appointment of the president 4.2 and all the rest of the officers. That's 4.1, 4.2.
I think we have a trustee representative on the list.
Yes, but before we do that, we always, I'm gonna ask Superintendent Ochoa. The secretary has always historically been the superintendent, but do we have to actually officially nominate? No. Okay, thank you. Okay, well then, President Proctor, I will turn it over to you for the committee assignments.
Okay. I have some assignments here and I am going to read them off. So Secretary of the Board is Superintendent Ochoa. For Legislative Representative, it is Trustee Corzo. For the liaison to San Mateo City Council, I have Trustee Corzo and myself. For liaison to Foster City Council, I have Trustee Chin and myself. For liaison to the San Mateo Foster City Education Foundation, I have Trustee Watkins. For liaison to the PTA Coordinating Council, I have Trustee Warren. For liaison to the District Special Education District Advisory Council, also known as CDAC, I have Trustee Warren and myself. For liaison to the District English Language Advisory Council, also known as DLAC, I have Trustee Warren. For liaison to the Sanctuary Task Force, I have Trustee Chin. For liaisons to the Equity Task Force, I have Trustee Watkins and myself. For the liaison to the Home for All Committee, I have Trustee Corzo and Trustee Chin. For liaison to the Communications Committee, I have assigned myself. And for the liaison to Labor Management Initiative, also known as LMI, I have Trustee Watkins and Trustee Chin. So everybody should have 3 or 4. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, that is it.
Great. Thank you, President Proctor. The last item is the adjournment of the organizational meeting or the reorganization meeting. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn the annual organizational meeting. Congratulations, President Proctor.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins for motion, Trustee Corzo for the second. I'll finish this off and hand it over. For the vote, Trustee Corzo,
Yes.
President Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Watkins,
Yes.
Trustee Warren,
Yes.
and I will vote yes as well. And so our annual organizational meeting has been officially closed, and we are now going to reconvene to our regular meeting, and I will turn it over to President Proctor.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna have to go really slow because
Yeah.
this is new to me and I don't want to mess up. But thank you very much. So now we have item 6, recognition. Is there anything we need to recognize here? No? Anything?
I think that typically would have been the performance.
Okay,
Mhm.
performance has been done. We will move on to item 7.1, public statements related to non-agenda topics. The San Mateo Foster City School Board cannot act upon any matter that has not been included and publicly posted on the agenda, except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. The board may refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Please limit your statements to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone in the audience that has any public statements related to non-agenda topics? Okay, seeing none. Peter, would you mind checking with the Zoom attendees if there are anybody that would like to speak?
Absolutely, President Proctor. Any members of the public who might be joining us for the first time via Zoom, if you'd like to make public comment on any non-agenda item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment on non-agenda items.
Okay, 7.2 is public statements related to agenda items. Persons will be called on at the appropriate time. So we can now move to 7.3, which is foundation and committee reports. Does anybody have anything to report? Okay, there are no reports at this time. We will move on to item 7.4, SMETA CSEA SMEA updates. And Peter, can you please bring, or maybe they're here first. Some of them are here.
Hi, everyone. First off, I'd like to congratulate trustees Proctor, Watkins, and Corzo on your new positions. And thank you to Trustee Chin for everything that you've done while being president. I have some exciting news that's exciting for me. It's probably not going to be as exciting for you, but I'm super excited about this. We haven't had a vice president since the summer, and this week, Denora Smith, who's the administrative assistant over at LEAD, was elected vice president. So yay! Welcome, Denora. Can't wait to work with you. And since I missed the last meeting, I was going to give thanks to an employee for all of their hard work recruiting new members when they come in for their orientation. So thank you so much, Wilbur Lopez, for everything you are doing to recruit new CSEA members over at the district office when they are being hired. We greatly appreciate you. Yeah. I'm excited for you guys to see the strategic plan. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I know Superintendent Ochoa is going to go over that, but Grateful to be a part of that process, and it's nice that everyone's voices are being heard, from teachers to CSEA to parents, and just everyone's included in this whole process. So it's been great. I've enjoyed it. Can't wait for you guys to see it, or you all to see it. And then, not related to CSEA at all, but I did see farther down the agenda for the appointment of the new positions. I just wanted to congratulate my former principal, Heather Morgan, on her new role. I have to do it. She was my principal. She's great. I'm happy for her. And I hope you all have a fabulous holiday break. That's all I've got.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry for the bad lighting here, but it's just what we're working with. I want to echo actually a lot of what Alicia said. First, congratulations to President Proctor. Looking forward to having you in that role, and also thank you to Trustee Chin for all of the work he did when he was in that role. I also want to acknowledge and appreciate Superintendent Ochoa for being so inclusive with the strategic planning. I'm excited for you guys also to see it. I had the opportunity to actually meet with many of the teachers who were on the plan, and one of the who were on the committee to help put this plan together was you know, one of the big comments is that this is really the first time that we've ever had the opportunity to be engaged in this way. And there was a lot of, we all agreed that it was, we appreciated the opportunity to sort of have a voice in this plan rather than having it just be presented to us. So thank you for that. And I want to wish everybody, you know, happy holidays to whatever holiday you celebrate. And I hope everybody has some downtime, time to settle in with their families and come back in 2022 ready to rock and roll on this plan. So that's all I have to say. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, my name is Caleb Bowers, and I'm the principal at Bowditch Middle School. Bowditch is located in Foster City and currently is serving 940 students in grades 6 through 8. We have a dedicated staff of 70 staff members that strive to create an academically rich environment while meeting the social and emotional needs of all of our students on a daily basis. On behalf of SMEA and Bowditch, I would like to wish everyone a safe and restful winter break, and a special thanks to Mr. Song and the Bowditch Chamber Orchestra for performing earlier tonight. Thank you.
President Chin, if I can just piggyback on President Proctor. Creature of habit. What we saw tonight from these students, you know, a lot of folks grew up here or their kids go to school here. So what you all saw tonight is not typical. My ears have bled from some of the performances at other middle school orchestra. The sweetest kids you've ever seen, but they struggle with the music. These children, what they did and what their teacher is guiding them and what their parents are doing to support them, it's really remarkable. It was beautiful, it was moving, and just Principal Bowers, thank you so much for bringing them tonight and for showcasing how talented they are. So anyway.
President Proctor, if I might add my comments as well. Yes, Caleb and the rest of the Bowditch community, it's fantastic that you guys were here. I know that everyone just picked up and left, and we wanted to make sure that that they didn't have to stick around for half an hour before actually hearing them. But I wanted to express our thanks and appreciation for the performance. It's another sign that we are sort of getting back to normal a little bit, albeit still wearing masks, but yet by having these performances and these recognitions is really, really fantastic, and it's great. I was going to add that I did take violin back when I was younger in elementary and middle school, and those students who played tonight have way more talent than I ever had. So I just wanted to appreciate my thanks to you and the whole program. So thank you.
I wanted to thank Alicia, Julie, and Caleb for their updates, but also specifically Caleb, thank you for sharing the Bowditch Orchestra with us tonight. They did really well. You could tell that probably even during distance learning, they continued to practice their instruments, and it was really great to see them tonight in person. So thank you. Before we move on to the next item, Trustee Corzo, would you mind making the announcement for translation, please?
Of course. Gracias por estar aquí esta noche. Si ocupa traducción, si tenemos traducción disponible, puede hacer clic en su pantalla en el icono del globo o también puede levantar la mano para que le ayudemos a cambiar la idioma. Gracias.
Thank you. And one more thing before we continue on, I just wanted to announce that we have 57 participants on Zoom tonight, and we have 4 people in the audience. So thank you for being here in person and online. We're going to move on to item 7.5, which is announcements. Does anybody have any announcements to share?
Thank you. I just wanted to make an announcement. I had the pleasure of attending HIP Housing's annual art contest awards the other night. And I just wanted to recognize, for those who don't know, HIP Housing is a fantastic partner here in San Mateo County that helps provide thousands of people and families homes and helps them find with housing assistance. So they had their annual celebration, and in that celebration, they had their art contest winners. I don't know why this split. Okay, it's not going to work. Anyways, thank you. But we had 3 winners here in our district, and I just wanted to recognize them. So from Foster City Elementary, a kindergarten, Lak Jan, I think it is. From George Hall, a 2nd grader, Nicholas Chang. And from San Mateo Park, another 2nd grader, Jimena Cruz. They are all of their artwork has been published in their HIP Housing's calendar. And I just wanted to recognize them for all their hard work. And it is great that some of our fantastic community partners do highlight some of our students in our district. So congratulations to them, and thank you, HIP Housing, for everything that you guys do.
Can I just add to that? I just want to also recognize that HIP Housing actually did provide translation in Spanish for the first time at this event. They had never done that before, and I just want to commend I want to give a plug for my friend who works there, Chris Durkin. He was the one that actually, made sure to reach out to the families and ask if they wanted translation, and so that was provided. And I just want to say, having events and celebrations accessible to people in different languages is really important. So I'm really glad that they are doing that, and I'm glad the family was able to really celebrate their child's artwork in the calendar and the organization.
Do we have any other announcements? Okay, I will just share, we already know, but with the public, that a few of us attended the California School Board Association conference in San Diego, I don't know, a week or 2 ago, lost track of time. And so hopefully at some point we can share some of the things that we learned with everybody. And then also we visited San Mateo Park and College Park elementary schools for a school site visit, and just wanted to thank everybody at the schools that invited us into their classrooms and showed us around the school, and the principals as well for welcoming us. So thank you for that. And then last night I was a judge for the Audubon Spelling Bee, and so it was really fun. It was great. These kids are very smart and very good spellers. But I just wanted, with the event that you attended, Trustee Chen, and the Spelling Bee, and we've been kind of out and about, it's nice to get back out to the community and get out to our schools and see people again. So it's starting to feel, although we remain safe, it feels really good to see everybody. Okay, moving right along to 7.6. It's this. Oh,
Can
go
I-
ahead, Trustee Corzo.
You actually reminded me, I just wanted to
Mhm.
give a quick plug. So the keynote at CSBA was Dr. Victor Rios. And I think language is really important. And one of the things that we learned from his keynote was that it's really important to recognize that, when we label kids at risk, it's a little bit problematic, and it's actually better to say at promise for many reasons. But I just wanted to share that highlight because language does matter. And yeah, his keynote was really powerful. So I hope that we can get a recording of it at some point, but thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, moving on to 7.6, Superintendent Report, Superintendent Ochoa.
Trustee Corzo stole my thunder. My comments. First is to thank Bowditch and the orchestra program. Second is we have probably 40 employees on the call or in the room, and I just appreciate all you so much. I'm just so thankful to each and every one of you. I want to particularly point out my executive assistant, Tatiana Sandoval. Today was the last day of our big 40-person party here for strategic planning, and you've done everything to make that a success. And I'm deeply thankful to you for the kindness and the warmth that you show everybody who comes to these meetings, and the way that you professionally prepare to make sure that the people that come in to do this important work are comfortable and able to engage in the work. So Tatiana, thank you so much. Plus you have to work with me every day. So just thank you for enduring that very difficult task. Dr. Rios gave a keynote at the CSBA conference, and he spent some time talking about his experience with a former teacher of his, Flora Russ, who challenged him, who didn't put up with him not believing in himself. And he talked about this concept of what he referred to as an educator projected future for him. She told him, you will meet presidents one day and you will be exceptional. And he came from a very challenging background, and so the first time he went to speak at the White House, he tells a story about they gave him a ticket to go to this event on the White House lawn. He says, well, I took my whole family. He took 6 people with him. He said, I wanted to see if they would turn us away or if they would actually let us in. And so all his children got to go, and his spouse. He has this photograph of then Vice President Biden, but now President Biden, shaking one of his kids' hands. And then he went into the restroom there on the West Wing and took pictures of the towels and the soap, and sort of, because he wanted to show that to his teacher, who had 25 years before told him, I see something for you in your future that even you don't see for yourself. So he talked about this concept of being a warm demander. In other words, that teacher was incredibly warm to him and his family. She took the time to know and understand and reach out and let them know that she cared about him. But she had demands for him along with that warmth. She said, I need you to come to school every day. I need you to get your work done. I need you to engage in your learning. So that concept of warmth, but also demands, is really going to be an area of focus for me in my leadership with the district, is to work with all of my colleagues through the strategic plan process to be able to achieve a culture of educator projected futures for our students who maybe don't see that yet, and also a culture of warm demands that come from a district that knows our families and that cares about our families, but has high expectations for our students and our families. So I'll leave you with that. I'm really thankful to have this opportunity to make these remarks, and looking forward to the strategic plan process in the future.
Thank you very much. We are going to move on to item number 8, the proposed consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion, unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items be removed and discussed from the consent agenda. The superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Movement on any recommended consent item is appropriate at this time. Are there any items that anyone from the board would like to remove from the consent agenda? No. Okay. Oh, anyone? No. Anyone in the audience or here that would like to remove anything? Okay. So Peter, would you mind checking with the Zoom audience?
Absolutely. If there's any member of the audience that would like to make public comment on one of the consent agenda items, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom, and then I'll ask you what specific agenda item you would like to make public comment on. Okay. President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment on consent.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have trustee Chin for the motion and trustee Corzo with the second. We will do a roll call vote. Trustee Corzo,
Yes.
trustee Chin,
Yes.
trustee Watkins,
Yes.
trustee Warren. And I also vote yes.
I'm sorry, President Proctor, can I make one comment?
Sure.
I just want to congratulate the district office staff and facilities. We have 2 major big projects that are coming forward here that we just approved. One is George Hall, the NPR, which I'm very, very excited about. And then also Foster City's installation of turf that will be much needed and help with the, I'll say, perpetual feces issues, visitor issues. Thank you. Winged visitor issues with their lovely Christmas presents that they leave every day. So thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to highlight that and thank you for allowing me that time to comment.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to item 9.1, approval of 7th, 8th grade math pathways, ensuring access to algebra.
Wait, really quickly before we move on, even though I know you already moved on, we also have a new appointment for Director of Special Education who's in the audience that I think we should also recognize. So congratulations to Heather Morgan.
That is right. Congratulations. Do you want to speak? Okay, let's hear from her. Come on up.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. I really appreciate this opportunity and the challenge. And, you know, you've known me a long time and I'm really dedicated to the kids of our district and the students and the staff as well. And I'm really looking forward to working in this capacity and just really building a great, strong program for our families and for our kids. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we can move on to item 9.1.
Yes, President Proctor and Board and Superintendent David Chambliss with Ed Services. It's my pleasure to return to you again this evening, now to follow up on the informational presentation that we made last month about the staff proposal for 7th and 8th grade math pathways, and to just sort of affirm that proposal with you and then seek your approval for it. So with your permission, I'm going to quickly share my screen. All right. And so just the commitment this evening to not completely redo the presentation that we shared with you last time, meant to just simply reconnect with that proposal. So again, that we're here this evening to share and seek your approval on a staff proposal for pathways to improve math performance, increase algebra enrollment, and improve the diversity of our enrollment in our algebra classes. The three pathways, again, that we are proposing, and again, we think the strength of this proposal is, in fact, the three pathways, that it is in combination of these pathways that we will best serve our students, whether they ultimately take algebra in high school, which is the traditional pathway that you see listed here first, or whether they reach algebra in 8th grade. And again, there are two pathways to algebra in 8th grade that we are proposing. The first is to complete Math 6 in 6th grade, Math 7 in 7th, and then with support of teachers and parents, families through kind of counseling what's the best for my child here, to make available to students to take 2 periods of math in 8th grade. And again, just to clarify that would be, for example, a student would take all of Math 8 in 1 semester. It's equivalent to the same number of hours of 1 period of Math 8 across the year, but we're accomplishing that in a single semester with the 2 period setup. And then similarly doing algebra in the 2nd semester of the year. Again, the hours, the time spent in learning are equivalent to a full year of instruction. And then the third pathway is rooted in this idea of some students, we think a very select few number of students would be able to demonstrate proficiency in Math 7 in the spring and summer of their 6th grade year. And having done that, would be able to enroll in a Math 8 class in 7th grade, so with other 7th graders and 8th graders. And then the following 8th grade year, they would be able to take a single course of algebra. Just to say, this third proposal has garnered sort of a lot of interest, and we'll come back and talk just briefly about the steps we have to take to support the implementation of that pathway. But first, let me just spend a few minutes reminding us all of the goals that are attached to this proposal. And again, these are rooted in our LCAP, and they're much more detailed goals here. So I'm kind of calling out, the highest level sort of priority goals that we are setting. The first would be that by 2023-24 school year, that we would see basically more than a doubling of the number of students enrolled in algebra as 8th graders, from 22%, which we currently are at, to 45%. And then a second goal is to radically increase the percentage of Latinx students that are enrolled in algebra, with the goal of reaching 35% by the 2023-24 school year. And then we would see, again, almost a doubling of the percent of students, 8th grade Latinx students, meeting or exceeding standard on our math CASP assessment in 8th grade. And then finally, that we would see 85% of 8th graders earning C or better in mathematics. Just to say, we didn't establish a specific baseline from last year, just acknowledging it was an unusual year. So we're going to set that target, and we'll report to you on what in effect the baseline was from this school year. So as I mentioned a minute ago, some important communication and information needs to be shared about the process for enrolling in what we call the 1 period algebra pathway. That again is where students would be demonstrating proficiency in Math 7 and then moving into Math 8 as 7th graders. So pending your approval, we're ready to move forward with a schedule of parent information nights in mid-January, setting the dates for the so-called end of course Math 7 assessment, and that would essentially be done by February 1st, and then really outlining the if students need to, what would be the self-study work that they would do either in the spring and or in the summer to again have another opportunity to demonstrate proficiency in Math 7. So with that, I turn it back over to you for any additional questions. And just to say, the rest of the deck here is just including the information that we shared with you from the November meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any clarifying questions? Trustee Chen.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a clarifying question, I understand that the LCAP goals calls out for 45%. It's moving from 22%, which we had reach algebra, to 45% in 8th grade. And so that is our goal, which I see more as sort of like the floor. I would expect us hopefully to exceed that. And so my clarifying question is based off of the student assessment data that we've received so far from our 6th graders, do you think that that goal is reachable, or are we going to possibly exceed it, as I would consider that as a floor?
Yeah, understood. Just to say that was the assessment we took this past fall was the first assessment. I mean, really at the beginning of the year, it showed a lot of promise in the percentages of students that were meeting or exceeding expectation for that assessment. So I would say that the data from that first assessment is certainly promising. I would also add, I guess, that the student survey that we conducted, assuming we have students who are in fact ready, the interest in taking algebra in 8th grade already exceeds the 45%. So if we do our job well and build on the interest that the students are expressing, I think there's a great opportunity certainly to hit the goal, if not exceed it.
Great, fantastic. Thank you very much. That's the only question I have.
Are there any more questions from the board? Okay, we can open it up to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience, in the in-person audience, that would like to make a comment? Okay, Peter, would you mind checking with the Zoom audience, please?
Absolutely. If there's anybody in the audience that would like to make comment on this agenda item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, great. We will move on to board comments. Who would like to start?
I'll go. Normally I'm last, so I'll just go first. Go back to my very beginning and go first.
You can go first this whole meeting if you want.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, David, for the presentation. Like I mentioned in the last meeting, to me, I think that the process has been great. I think the goals and the fact that we've already seen some of our student assessment data show that it's very promising that we'll possibly exceed the 45%. And then also the student survey interest shows that we'll definitely exceed the 45%. I love the fact that we're giving them options. I've liked the fact that we've surveyed the community, the parents. And so I'm very excited about this. I know it's been a sort of hard road sometimes to get here. I always think about the back room that we have here and up on the wall where it says Math Wars. And you see that what happened in like in 1970 or 1980, but every decade there seems to be an issue or a change in math. And so this is just our time for it. So I really appreciate the process that you've gone through. And I'm very excited to hear that we will possibly be exceeding that threshold. To me, again, like I'll mention just this last time, it comes down to is the implementation. So like now that we've done the goal, now it's just how are we communicating to the public in terms of the parents and making sure that the students know and what their options are and just really moving forward with that. So I am cautiously optimistic. but I am optimistic, and I want to thank you and the rest of your team and the rest of the teachers and the TOSAs and everyone who's worked on this, and all the math teachers, because I know that they've had changes this year, as most people have had, but for math specifically, this has been a change. So I want to thank you for all your hard work and everyone on your team. So thank you.
So I just wanted to add that I also appreciate the presentation and the goals, but I did want to just share that I think these are absolutely positive goals, and this is what we as a board have said that we want, right? We want to make algebra more accessible to all students and more inclusive to all students. And you know, something that I have learned is that there's also this recommendation for many math teachers about, you know, it being okay for students to accelerate or to just, you know, accelerate later on in high school if that's the path that they choose. So I just wanted to share that. I guess it's like it's something that every, you know, parent will have to decide for themselves. And that our district will obviously, you know, provide a lot of information to our community so that they're making informed decisions. But I guess, you know, just for myself and my own son, my son's in 5th grade right now, so he'll be going to middle school next year. It's something that, you know, I as a parent will have to really think about. My son loves math, and so I may be in this situation where I will have to choose a path for him. Right now, to be honest with you, I'm leaning towards, you know, we'll see how it goes, but I'm leaning towards just, you know, having him just do the general math classes because of my conversations that I've had with teachers about the importance of that and how rich the curriculum is and how in depth it goes, and that, you know, students are, you know, they're better prepared for high school and accelerating in high school when they have like a really strong foundation. So I just wanted to voice that, but I'm excited that, you know, we are on a path towards making sure that all families have more options and not just, you know, a select few that know how to navigate that specific system, and that was very closed and hard to access for all families. So yeah, those are my comments. Thank you.
Any comments down here?
Unless you want to have a comment to make, go for it. Okay. So the last time we met and discussed math, we heard from our 6th grade students, our current 6th grade students, some of them, granted, we've got plenty of 6th grade students. We certainly didn't hear from all of them. And one of the concerns was what they felt was a lack of challenge. You know, I hear parents, you know, voicing their concern about a lack of challenge as well. You know, we heard about, you know, how some students, you know, were offered challenge questions, but then never received the answers to those challenge questions, which to me seems like, okay, we're halfway there, but we're not giving the full, you know, lesson in that. I can understand where parents and some students who are very much into math and see math as their future would be concerned about, you know, what is this pathway going to look like, you know, when the rubber meets the road. I can understand, you know, that concern. I also feel like at the same time, we have to recognize and accept and celebrate our students that aren't into math, you know, or math isn't as big of a focus for them. Like not everybody's going to be an engineer when they grow up. Not everybody, you know, we need artists in the world. We need writers in the world. And some people, and I'll be honest, I'm a science person, but my view of math was, this is what I need to take my organic chemistry. So I wasn't as involved with my math classes any more than I had to be. And I think by seeing these 3 different pathways, I feel like we're celebrating that. I feel like we are recognizing that we have different kinds of students. We don't have cookie cutter students in San Mateo and Foster City. And I do appreciate that. Like I said, my concern is that we keep going with the challenges and keep offering the challenges, regardless of the pathway. You know, because if our students aren't feeling challenged or they're not feeling like they're learning, whether they're GATE students, whether they're English learners, whether they're special education, whether they're anything in between, even if they're preschoolers, if they're not feeling like they're learning, then we're not really doing our job. So that would just be something that I would ask Mr. Chambliss that we keep in mind, and that our math TOSs keep in mind, is that the challenge continues to be there regardless of the pathway. And I trust that you and the math TOSs and the math teachers, you know, where the boots on the ground are going to continue to make that happen.
Thank you for the presentation and reviewing kind of what was shared last week. So I'm in support of this moving forward. I kind of, I guess, have 2, I don't know if it's caveats or 2 things that I think for me would be really important for us to be tracking or keeping in mind. So one is we have ambitious goals about who is going to enter into pathways, who's going to have more access to some of the more advanced pathways, really thinking about closing gaps that we're seeing. So kind of to Trustee Corzo and Trustee Warren's points around not everyone needs to be accelerated, true, but we can't see disparity in who is accelerating and who isn't, which we're currently seeing. And so I want to make sure that we're actually tracking that if we have these as goals. So I want to make sure that as a board, we're looking at that data, we're looking at demographics, we're looking at subgroups, and we're seeing whether or not this plan we have in place is actually doing what we are saying that it's going to do. Because if it's not, then we do need to revisit this and we need to do something different. And not that it's going to happen overnight, but we should begin to see some differences if we're really committed to this as a goal. So that's kind of one piece, like, yes, all for it, and only if we do that. The other thing is just really thinking about tracking, I guess, budgetary decisions as it pertains to math. So, you know, one of the things that came up in one of our board and community workshops was just, where are we spending money as it pertains to math? Are more resources, and resources mean our accelerated math classes smaller than non-accelerated math classes? How are we distributing resources for students, and is that inequitable? I want to make sure that we have like a fine, that we're looking at that on a consistent basis, and maybe it happens as we're looking at kind of demographic data. Because it's important that our resources align with our goals, right? So are we putting the resources that we need to make sure that we're achieving the impacts that we want in terms of providing access to more students into some of the more advanced pathways, closing gaps that we know exist? Again, you know, I'm just thinking, I'm sure that there's a lot more components than I can, obviously there are more components that I can even sit here and think about, but I'm thinking about things like staffing, professional development, tutoring, right? Like all of the things that we think about when we think about investing into these math pathways. Where is that going? And I would like for the team to be really thinking about that, and then to be able to share that back with us if that's not already something that was in the works. So, those are the 2 pieces that I'm just thinking about with this. I'm just making sure that we're circling back to that, and that the plan that we're promising, that the promise that we're making is the promise that we're keeping. And if it's not, that we're willing to pivot.
Great points made by everybody. So thank you for your comments. I will just add that when I look at this plan, it makes me feel very good that there's options for students. And you know, I have two middle school students. One is a sixth grader this year, and there's just a lot going on in sixth grade, and not everybody's ready for you know, super complicated math. And I have a seventh grader, so I also know that seventh graders aren't always ready. So this gives options to kids to kind of move at their own pace and make sure that they are feeling comfortable with their math education before they step out into an accelerated path or commit to 2 periods in 8th grade. So I really like that. This feels comfortable. This feels like students have some choices. And like Trustee Watkins said, I'm curious to see the data as it shakes out and as we move along here, how we are doing. So I thank you, David, and the math team for all the work on this. This is obviously not something easy. This has been brewing for a while, and so it feels good to see this and see the plan. Are there any last comments? Okay, so is this something we vote on? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion on this item?
I'll make the motion to approve item 9.1, the 7th and 8th grade math pathways, ensuring access to algebra.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Chin for the motion and Trustee Corzo for the second. We will do a roll call vote now. Trustee Corzo?
Yes.
Trustee Chin?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
Trustee Warren?
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. Thank you very much. We will now move on to item 9.2, approval of Educator Effectiveness Block Grant 2021.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be back with you again, and this time in similar fashion to follow up on a presentation or sharing of the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant that we shared with you in November. By state direction, we are required to have an informational meeting that is then followed by an approval meeting, which by December 31st. So that approval meeting is this evening. Give me a second here and I will share my screen and then come back to. All right, let's see if that's good. Okay, so it's showing up. All right, so just to remind us that the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant is allocation from the state of a little over $2.4 million. As a Educator Effectiveness Block Grant, this is in and of itself not the specific strategies that Superintendent Ochoa, but we'll talk about later on. But one of the pillars that would support the implementation and work toward those strategies, and this is specifically focused on the capacity building of our current teachers and paraeducators, and the opportunity to build paraeducator capacity to become teachers, that kind of thing. So this is a critical priority in terms of devoting funds to that very needed pillar of improvement. So I shared this with you last time. Since then, we also have had an opportunity with our stakeholder advisory team to really go through this very thoroughly and get that group's feedback. And again, the stakeholder advisory team is parent and staff representative from each of our schools. So it was a good and rich conversation. Probably the most significant feedback we got in that meeting is the desire to see how this funding and this plan sort of sits within the broader plan. And so while the Educator Effectiveness Block Grant itself, the template for it and whatnot doesn't allow us to see the whole picture, we have committed to them and are committing to you tonight that we will come back and we will talk about, as part of the strategic plan, how, and the LCAP, how this funding fits in with the broader set of priorities. Again, we've been to you here to talk about the AB86 funding, we've come to you to talk about our ESSER 3 plan. I mean, there's lots of sort of separate plans that we're required to share with you and get your approval on for the state. And it'll be really in that strategic plan and LCAP that we will bring these together, and you hopefully will be able to see how the pieces of funding fit together toward some key goals for our district. That said, we also we got feedback on sort of some of the amounts of allocation. So let me summarize for you tonight a little bit of the shift that you can see from the last proposal that we brought to you. That shows up right away in this first area of coaching and mentoring of staff. We actually didn't have this strategy the last time we were with you of providing support for a teacher residency and credential program financial assistance. Basically, this is us, acknowledging that it's important to diversify our staff. It's important to support our paraeducators to become teachers. It's important that we support those who are getting credentials in hard to fill positions. So the idea is to allocate a significant chunk of money to indeed provide financial assistance to those ends. So that's what you will see here. And then pushing on, you will see we actually increased the emphasis on in the funding for the training, and we actually focused it prior to this. It was a TK5, and we're actually bringing it closer to to a more focused TK3 foundational literacy, and increasing the funding for that. Again, this hopefully will sound consistent with the priority we're making this year around our shift from balanced literacy to structured literacy, and more to say about that. Then in the following area, practices and strategies that re-engage, there was some reduction in some of the allocations, but the strategies are still the same. There is in bucket, the fourth bucket here, we came to you, this is consistent, the special education behavior intervention strategies. This was we talked last time about the behavior technician certification costs and whatnot. We actually reduced the expected allocation for responsive classroom training. There was discussion about should that be a district-wide strategy at this point, and actually we tempered it back to no, we're just going to support schools and teachers that are looking for this kind of training. We actually increased the allocation for trauma-informed practices. And this again, we continue to get feedback on the challenges of this year and what families have experienced over the last year and a half, and really the importance of just leaning in and building the capacity of our staff as well as our teachers in this. Just to note that there'll be a second round of trauma-informed practice training for our school office staff on our January 4th PD day, right? A critical group of folks who are front office, really important that they, as well as teachers. So that's the kind of effort to go staff-wide that we're investing in here. The continued work in restorative practices, really here, these are the very same strategies, some adjustment in the overall allocations to accommodate the increases already mentioned. The increase in allocation for our TK5 English learner supports, continuing to support PD as we get to our social studies implementation, new adoption and implementation around ethnic studies in middle school, and then the allocation. And again, the training in early childhood foundational literacy, we just really want to emphasize that also, that's part of that TK3 strategy. So there are a lot of dollars that are sort of being allocated to this overall strategy there. So let me pause there and take any questions you may have, and then offer this proposal up for your approval.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions from the board? I have one, David. Thank you for the presentation. You mentioned that there was some stakeholder input. Could you remind or re-say who was part of that group?
Yeah, so the stakeholder advisory group is a group that was formed last spring with at least one parent and one staff representative from each school. So superintendent continues to take advantage of that group, particularly around getting input on these sort of small s strategic plans. And so that was the group that we met with. We actually had 2 engagements with them around this, one before the November meeting and one after.
Great, thank you. If there are no other questions, then we can move on to public comment. We don't have anyone in the audience here anymore. So Peter, would you mind checking on Zoom to see if anybody has any comments on this?
Absolutely. If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on this particular agenda item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, would any board members like to make comments? Okay, I'm not seeing any comments. Just to double check, this is also something we should vote on? Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion on this item?
I'll make the motion to approve item 9.2, which is our educator effectiveness block grant for 2021.
I'll second. I'll second.
Okay, thank you. We have trustee Chin with the motion and trustee Watkins for the second. We will start a roll call vote. Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Chin.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. Thank you very much. We will move on to item 10.1, 2021-22 first interim report.
Yes, thank you, everybody. So we provided you in your board packet tonight an executive summary. We provided you about 150-page SACS report to read through. And I've got a couple slides to put together for you as well, which I'll share with you in just a moment. There we go. Oop, it jumped ahead. Really quickly, in our executive summary and even in these slides tonight, we try to capture for you some high-level items, some positive changes for us from a revenue perspective and an expense change perspective. We also provided to you as well some information regarding our enrollment and what our actual enrollment looks like for the year versus what our projection was. And that's a pretty substantial change. And Dennis and I and Stephanie have been working with our enrollment projection person too, looking at the upcoming year. So we woven some of that information into the multi-year for you as well too. Anticipating we'll see flat enrollment next year. And we model that into the year after that as well too. And there's some changes into your ADA numbers, which we've embedded in those numbers too for planning purposes. So just as another quick side note, before I jump into a little more depth of this first interim for you, when we looked at this year's enrollment numbers, we went back as a team and looked at what prior year enrollment numbers have been, going back to as far as 13-14. And we saw in our district that our enrollment numbers in 15-16 swelled to close to 12,000 students. And so between that time and now we're about 10,300 students. And between that time and now, we haven't seen much change in terms of our overall staffing. So although our district overall has seen a decline in our enrollment, we haven't seen much of a change in our overall staffing. So we've integrated some of that into our modeling for the upcoming year. In the next few months, we're going to spend time with you too, looking at budget assumptions. We're looking at the governor's budget. We have some other things. We're looking at property taxes. We're working with the city of San Mateo too on pass-through dollars that we understand that we're eligible to receive, which could be a significant increase to us as well too. So that's a little backdrop to you to what's being breathed into these slides into this presentation tonight. So overall, a very healthy budget picture for us. We understand the state budget that's being announced is very positive overall for education. And so as that unfolds, we'll breathe that into the multi-year for you moving forward. So again, this is a quick recap of what's in your executive summary too. This is what the cycle we're in. We're at first interim right now. We'll bring the audit report to you for the audited financials next month. This slide captures some of the highlights I already spoke to you about. It talks about things like unemployment insurance, what happened to the lottery dollars and things like that. This also captures for you what our actual enrollment is of 10,359 versus our projection of 11,057. So a decrease. Okay, these are budget assumptions. These haven't changed really dramatically. I'm hopeful and anticipate that actually the property tax growth we'll see in the out years will be greater than what we got modeled in here, but this 3-year property tax number looks to be the same for us. We've integrated the most recent information we have from the dashboard from school services and other folks into this for you. We've woven into for you as well into here some reduction in overall FTEs relative to that decrease of nearly 1,700 students. We'll still meet all the class size commitments we've made, the class size averages we've committed to in our budget. But this is reflective of some of those changes in that staffing number. These next also budget assumptions really talks about what we did the current year, the agreements we've met, what we anticipate we're going to see in terms of actual increases in the upcoming years, which are statutory in nature, and what we'll see in terms of indirect costs and things like that. We do not have salary increases built into the future years. And as we walk down the path, we'll likely see a change in those numbers too. Okay, this slide just shows you kind of the snapshot at first interim, what your total unrestricted and restricted revenues and expenditures look like, and what your beginning and ending fund balance looks like combined. Other highlights in here, there's just another snapshot looking at the same information, unrestricted in terms of different sources of revenues, unrestricted and restricted. And then also from an expenditures perspective, what you're looking at in terms of unrestricted and restricted dollars from an expenditure perspective for the current year. This is the multi-year projection slide I talked to you about too. So this shows you what your ending balance is anticipated to be and what those changes are, how they're woven into your overall budget, and looking at relatively flat enrollment and some pretty conservative property tax growth numbers built into your forecast for the upcoming years. Okay, this shows you what your snapshot of your ending fund balance is, in terms of committed, assigned, and the different components. These look really familiar to you. We've had some of these categories for some time. It shows you what your total general fund unrestricted balance looks like. And then this shows you too a snapshot of the different funds, beginning balance, expenditures, ending balance anticipated. So it shows you if there's any variation in those numbers. We've got some bond expenditures. As we're continuing to do planning, there's expenditures are anticipated to incur for the current year. Okay, so that's a super high level snapshot for you. And again, the first center is based on recommendations, guidance from the Budget Act and all these different entities. The next financial report will be the audited financial statements we bring to you in January. And again, if there's any modifications we don't anticipate in the audit, we would incorporate those into your second interim report too. Okay, and that's on the horizon too in terms of your second interim. So that's a really quick snapshot for you, but what we have for the first interim.
Thank you, Patrick. Do we have any clarifying questions from the board? Go ahead.
Okay, I'll start. Thank you for the presentation. There's a couple questions. One that was specific. I have questions and comments, so I'll save the comments for later. But in the PERS in 2023-24, they're projecting the PERS to be 27.1%, and it's gone up. So it's going to go up like 4% or so. Have we heard? I mean, that's what we hear from the state, right? So they come through and
I expect when we're in January, Ken, we'll see a modified number. So this
Okay.
is based on, nothing's changed from the adopted budget, but the governor's January budget. I expect we'll see a change in that number. Pretty routine that we see changes.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you. The other question I had was specifically related to the overall budget. So we have here, let me just get to this, was it 170 million, was it roughly 160 million?
Yep.
Right. And so going through the first interim and everything, and going through the bonds, right? There's $139 million. I think it's in Fund 21 or so,
Right.
in the report, that don't necessarily show up, but overall, it's not part of the 170 million. It's almost in addition to that. Is that correct?
That bond is a separate fund from the general fund.
And so this is only of the 170 million. This is just only specifically general fund.
That's
That we're
correct.
talking about.
That's correct.
Okay. So in reality, the funds that we actually manage as a whole is much greater because
That's right.
there's other ones. Okay, great, thank you. That's all. I will save my comments for later. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we can move on to public comment on this item. Peter, would you mind checking with the Zoom audience?
Absolutely. Any member of the audience that would like to make public comment on this agenda item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay. President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, now would be time for board comments. Anyone have any comments?
I feel bad. Sorry, I'm going first. I look at everybody first. Sorry, just out of habit. Thank you for the presentation, Patrick. A few comments. One is overall, I appreciate the way that you've taken over the interims. If you go back to a couple of years ago, there was less information, maybe more charts and data and everything. And when you actually read through this and you read through, let's just say, the executive summary here, which is only, what is it, 12 pages, there's a lot more understanding of, where the money comes from, what fund this is, what category is this, where it's coming from, how much of our budget is actually allocated to this. And I think it shows a lot of transparency. So I just want to thank you for that, because over the years, I have seen a change. The second comment I want to make is, there's that old saying of you need to go back and sharpen your pencils. And what is highlighted here is we get, for those who don't know, the county goes through and they don't audit us, but they look at our projections and they look at our multi-year projections and they tell us, right, if we're going to be in the red, right? And before Measure V, right, we were projected to be essentially $14, $17 million in the red in a couple of years. And we went out to the voters and asked for help, and they definitely helped us out, and we're definitely in the black, along with the property tax increase and everything else, our property values. And so where I'm getting that is that earlier this year, we had a letter that we received that the county told us that we were going to be $8 million in the hole. And what I see here through these projections is, that old adage is going back and sharpen your pencils. And what it shows is that you guys have done that. And so I know that this is a snapshot in time, and that obviously things change as more money comes in and money goes out. But I really appreciate the fact that you're looking forward, not just this year, but all the years that are coming up in the multi-years, to make sure that we are fiscally sound. So I just want to thank you for that. Lastly, my last comment is coming fresh off of our California School Board Association, goes back to a comment I made a couple of years ago, which is sort of that budget roadshow, or, and the money that, as clear as you made this, it's still, from the average Joe, right? There's still a lot of confusion about how school districts are funded. And I would just make that pitch that, again, while you made this easier, that it's very convoluted, and that for the average person, it might be helpful for us as we move forward down the line to think about how we present the budget and go out to the community and make sure that they understand where the money is coming from, what we're paying for, and how it's all being measured and counted for, so that it's more transparent. So that's just my plug. But again, thank you for all your hard work on this.
Do we have any other comments from the board? No? Okay, thank you, Patrick. I think we need a vote on this item as well. So would anyone like to make a motion?
I
Motion to approve.
I motion to approve this item.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Corzo with the motion and Trustee Watkins with the second. We will do a roll call vote. Trustee Corzo,
Yes.
Trustee Chen,
Yes.
Trustee Watkins,
Yes.
Trustee Warren,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. Before we move on to the next item, we need to take a little mini break. Some of us we've all been here since 5:30, so we're going to take a quick, maybe 3-minute break, and we'll come right back. Okay, let's come back from break, everyone. Okay, are we ready to move on to item 11.1, approval of Safe Routes to School Grant 2021-2022?
Yes, thank you. Welcome. Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Ochoa. 11.1 is approval of Safe Routes to School. I'm excited to share some revenue news. We're going to get $28,000 from the Safe Routes to School grant for the 2021-2022 school year. This grant is awarded in partnership with the San Mateo County Office of Education. Safe Routes to School encourages healthy lifestyle choices and educates students and parents about the benefits of walking, biking, and roller skating or skateboarding safely to school. The 5 components of the Safe Routes to Schools are education, encouragement, engineering, evaluation, and equity. This year, our grant money of $28,000, we plan to spend in a couple ways. We're going to have bike rodeos for all 4th graders in the district. This is going to be an on-site safety demonstration for biking and skateboarding. And we hope to provide some middle school assemblies that talk about pedestrian and bike safety as well. The second area is about engineering, and we're purchasing bike racks for Abbott and Baywood Elementary. So I respectfully ask that the Board of Trustees ratify the submission of the application for the 2021-2022 Safe Routes to School grant in the amount of $28,000.
Great, thank you, Dennis. Are there any clarifying questions from the board? Okay.
Sorry, can you just go over one more time? What are the schools that are getting the bike racks?
The bike racks, Abbott Middle School and Baywood Elementary.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, Peter, would you mind checking with the Zoom audience to see if anyone has any public comment on this item?
Absolutely. If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. We have Allison. Allison, go ahead.
Hello, Superintendent Ochoa and the board. I'm excited to see this measure. In order to enable walking and biking to school, children must be allowed to attend the school that is closest to their home. In our neighborhood, North Shoreview, the school in our neighborhood is a lottery school, North Shoreview Montessori. Our neighborhood came together several years ago to advocate this board to reinstate longstanding priority that was removed at some point. And it was reinstated. The board has committed that our neighborhood have 12 spots reserved for children from our neighborhood for kindergarten. I would like to remind the board of this commitment, which directly enables biking and walking to school. My children and other families in the neighborhood walk and bike to school. We appreciate being able to attend a school that we can walk and bike to. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Okay, President Proctor, there are no other hands for public comment.
Great, thank you. Are there any board comments at this time?
I have a comment. I'm just wondering, I know like the bike racks for those two schools are being replaced essentially, right? But it's just occurring to me that like I don't have a good understanding, and I don't think our board has gotten information about like, you know, are there some schools that don't have any bike racks? Or, you know, are there some, is there disparity there in terms of like, because I know we've talked about before, like there are schools that have crossing guards, and then there are schools that that don't. I'm not sure that every one of our schools does. And so that's just what's coming up for me as we're seeing this on our agenda and talking about it. And I know we have an expert here on safe routes to school, so maybe maybe we can get a little bit more info from him.
So I'll make my comments. You put me on the spot. It has been a focus of the county and in the past our district to promote walking and biking to school. There's lots of things, as Dennis outlined. There's both sort of programmatic stuff that happens, and then there's infrastructure, right? And what they're talking about specifically is bicycle racks. And that's infrastructure. A lot of times there's not a lot of money specifically for infrastructure, but every school should have bicycle racks that are there. I will make the plug, and this was part of my comment that I was going to make following your comments, was that there are schools where we see excess numbers in terms of bicycle riders, and that we need additional bicycle racks. I know that the bicycle racks that are being replaced, I believe are being replaced, they may not be in the worst shape possible, so they may be able to relocate it to another school where there's actually greater need as well. So I'll just make that's my official comment from the board. But I do think that infrastructure money sometimes is hard to come by, but every school should have bicycle racks. At the middle schools, there are more bicycle racks because families are more comfortable with their children riding to school in middle school rather than, and also in upper elementary, but less so in the younger years. So.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Okay, I will just make a comment that, you know, I understand that this is called Safe Routes to School, but I want to just remind the community that as a mother, it's very scary to send your kids off to school riding their bikes in the morning, especially when traffic is kind of crazy and people are trying to get to work. And, you know, I check my kids on their phones every day. I can like breathe once I see that they're at school. But I know that this goes beyond just educating students about how to ride their bikes safely. It's really a community effort, and you know, everybody needs to slow down. And I know San Mateo is doing some work around reducing speeds. I hope that Foster City may follow suit, or at least determine areas where it can be something that can be adjusted so that it is more safe for students. All right, then I think okay.
I'm sorry. I just would like to make a comment too, and just going back to the public comment that we heard, you know, it is nice to be able to send your child to a neighborhood school. It is nice to be able to know that your child can ride their bike to school or walk to school. And we have a whole community that does not have that opportunity right now. And I think that this is a great step and something that we don't forget when we start to plan for that community to have their own school. Just the value that there is in having a neighborhood school and being able to walk your child to school, being able to let your child ride their bike to school and know that it's safe. So I just think that that's something that we need to keep in the back of our mind as well.
Great, thank you. Now it looks like we have to approve this. So I will ask if there's anyone that would like to make a motion.
I'm happy to make a motion.
Oh, sorry.
So you want to make the motion, Ken? Make a motion to approve the Safe Routes to School grant.
Would anyone like to make a second?
I second.
Okay, we're gonna do this all together, so we don't need to do a roll call vote anymore, but all of those in favor, please unmute yourself and say aye.
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 Aye also, sorry. All opposed? And any abstain?
I'll make an abstention since I sit on the county's Safe Routes to School Task Force. So I don't actually officially vote on it, but I'll abstain nonetheless.
Okay, so this will pass with a vote of 4 yeses and 1 abstention. We will
Okay.
now move. Oh, I'm going to move on. Are you the next one too? Okay, 11.2, approval of childcare contract 2022-2023.
Yes, thank you. The next item is just that, and it's for more money. This is the San Mateo Foster City School District currently receives California State Preschool Program funding from the California Department of Education to support early childhood education programs at Turnbull Child Development Center, Lead, North Shoreview, and Parkside Elementary Schools. The funding is for $2.4 million for the 2022-2023 school year, and it will support salaries, supplies, custodial, and overall general costs to cover the preschool program at these sites. I respectfully ask the Board of Trustees to adopt Resolution 15-2122, authorizing San Mateo Foster City School District to enter in local agreements with the California Department of Education to provide California State Preschool Program childcare and development services for the 2022-2023 school year.
Thank you, Dennis. Are there any clarifying questions from the board? Okay, Peter, can you check with the audience on Zoom to see if there are any public comments?
Absolutely. If there's any members of the audience that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, we have no hands, President Proctor.
Okay, are there any board comments on this item? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion on this?
I'll make the motion to approve item 11.2, which is the approval of child care contract for 2022-2023.
Can we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Chin for the motion and Trustee Watkins for the second. All in favor of approving this, please say aye.
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 Aye, sorry, I forget it. All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, this is approved, 5 yeses and 0 no's. We will move on now to item 12.1, presentation of strategic plan recommendations from Superintendent Ochoa.
Thank you, President Proctor. Peter, I'm going to ask if you can get us connected to our consultant, Sepide. I'm looking here at my cell phone to see if she's logged in, but I'm going to ask that you coordinate with her and help her get updated to panelist access. And I'll begin by conducting a quick summary of the process that we've used to arrive at tonight's presentation. At our August 12th meeting of the Board of Trustees, the board approved an agreement with the California School Boards Association to be able to bring on Sepide Yo as our consultant in this district-wide strategic plan process. The result of that approval at that meeting was the initiation of a 4-month process in which a very diverse group of stakeholders representing every employee group in this district, representing schools in this district, representing parent voice, community partner voice, administrator voice, teacher voice, classified voice, embarked on a 5 separate meeting process that took place here in the boardroom in order to develop culture among the group. And in order to devote enough time grappling with the district's current strengths and weaknesses and the district's needs moving forward. Of the 40 people who agreed to be on the committee, we had extraordinarily high commitment levels. Today was the last day of that 5-meeting process, and we had just as big a group today as we had the first day. So the commitment level is there. The school board did hear from both of our employee union presidents. Their response and their experience was a positive one and a very connected one. And so what tonight's presentation from Sepide and myself is about is it's about connecting the 5 separate meetings worth of content and providing the school board with recommendations from this group that will kickstart a 45-day process for this board to devote time in meetings as a board of 5 trustees to be able to adopt goals for the strategic plan, and then to turn to me on the dais at the end of our 45-day process with this board and say, Superintendent Ochoa, please put together the team of people that work for our district, that are invested in the work of our district, to be able to create actions and strategies that connect to the goals that this collective group of Board of Trustees want to set a 5-year strategic plan for this district. So it's exciting work for me. It's the culmination of many months of work. I have an extraordinarily talented colleague, Sepide Yo, who works in the Masters in Governance program through the California School Board Association. She's with us tonight and she's muted, but she is about to unmute. And you're going to stop hearing my voice and you're going to hear from Seppi. Seppi, to take it away.
All right, thank you so much, Diego. And hello and good evening to all of you, Board of Trustees. And it's an honor to be with all of you. It has been such a great pleasure to work with the Strategic Plan Work Group. 32 extremely dedicated and hardworking members representing your different schools and district office, as Diego said. And so we do have a very short presentation and a slide deck. Diego, are you able to share your screen? Should I share my screen and see? Beautiful, thank you so much. All right, so what we need to do then, let me exit full screen. All right, so as you can see on the actually, before I even start with the slideshow, if you look around your boardroom, and you can see the work of the Strategic Plan Work Group over
Seppi,
the past
I
4
do want to
months.
let you know, Seppi, they did take down every single poster. We had the walls papered with posters. You could not see the wall because of how many posters. So I looked away for a few minutes, Seppi, and everything came down.
Well, thanks for letting me know. Everybody's probably looking at the wall saying, what is she talking about? I do apologize. I did not know that. All right. So earlier today, we had put up a number of the chart papers because we really wanted you to see their work. So in about a few days, so by Monday, beginning of next week, you're going to receive an executive summary that has all of the work, highlights, as well as actual photos of chart papers, all the work that the Strategic Plan Work Group has invested for the past 4 months. So you will have all of that. Tonight is just a summary of what they have worked on. And of course, over the next few months, we'll all be working together to create the strategic plan, the goals that you will create, and the action plans that will come from your superintendent and staff. But let's begin by taking a look at Lillian Katz's quote. This is one of my favorite quotes. I begin almost every session with this quote because it's more about understanding governance and serving each and every child in your district. So could I have a volunteer to read out Lillian Katz's quote? Who would like to unmute and read this beautiful. It's long, but it's extremely meaningful.
I can read it. Each of us must come to care about everyone else's children. We must recognize that the welfare of our children and grandchildren is ultimately linked to the welfare of all other people's children. After all, when one of our children needs life-saving surgery, someone else's child will perform it. If one of our children is threatened or harmed by violence, someone else's child will be responsible for the violent act. The good life for our own children can be secured only if a good life is also secured for all other people's children. Lillian Katz.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So let's begin with that, and let's set the tone by thinking about each and every child in your district, all 11,000 of your students in all your 21 schools. Let's take a look at the next slide. And so this is a photo or a slide and photos of the strategic plan work group, 32 individuals. If you know any of these individuals, you have worked with them, you see them, and as you go on campuses, please make sure that you thank them for their work, and they'll continue to work with you and with Superintendent Ochoa to continue the work of the strategic plan and to make sure that the work that you are doing in setting the goals is actually turning into actionable steps, and you'll be able to see the results of it. Let's take a look at the very first, one of the first activities they did on the next slide. And I have another quote there for you by Belinda Harris. School improvement is a highly emotionally charged process. And that is so very true. So what the strategic plan work group did was to identify core values. So identify what are the core values, as well as on the next slide, mission and vision language recommendations for all of you to consider. So one of the first steps when you start, as you begin working on the strategic plan next year, is to revisit your vision and your mission and core values and develop the language that you all agree upon as a governance team. And so that's going, and you have some recommendations to go by from the work group. Let's look at the next slide, which has the building blocks framework for professional practices. These are the building blocks that we came up with and we agreed on, the group agreed on, and there was some language changes to some of the wording, just to be sure that it really represents what you want to represent in your strategic plan. So every goal that you set needs to touch these building blocks. Let's take a look at the next slide. This is another activity that the work group worked on. So developing the 4 Ps, the programs and policies, partnerships, physical environment, facilities, and people, including students, families, and staff. And so the work group identified the greatest strengths and needs in each of these categories, keeping in mind the building blocks as they were identifying strengths as well as weaknesses. The need categories that you will be keeping in mind as you set the goals for your district for the strategic plan are wellness, teaching and learning, achievement, all of the areas, of course, with an equity lens, pre-K readiness, and tools that will be utilized for interventions. Now, what the work group has suggested, has recommended, is 3 broad goals with longitudinal outcomes to address the areas that they identified as areas of need. Some of the areas are listed here, as you can see. And then what we have on the next slide is kind of examples and sample language in each of those areas for goals. So I'll give you a moment to take a look at just a few of the need area recommendations. Of course, when you receive the executive summary, they'll have a comprehensive list of areas of need as well as strengths in your district that were identified by the work group.
And Seppi, while the school board takes a look at the samples that are included in your presentation, what I really want to open up a conversation with this community and with this board about is the idea that all of our strategic plan goals be premised on a body of foundational building blocks. We did in our strategic plan process spend an entire meeting, rather 5 hours of time, talking about the importance, if you can go back, Peter, one slide, of as a school district, when we receive goal language from the board of trustees, because as a school board, this strategic plan is ultimately something that the 5 of you all are going to grapple with the language of those goals to really, as our group of 5 elected leaders in this district, deciding what that goal language will be, how clear, how powerful, how focused that language will be through a process with the 5 of you all. When you direct staff to then build detailed, time-sensitive, outcome-oriented plans to achieve those goals, they have to include elements like responsible fiscal support. You know, we know that as a district, we very deeply want to make an impact on the achievement gap that exists in this district. And we also know that we have an assistant superintendent, a CBO, who says we need to balance the books. You all had a presentation tonight for your first interim. You know, as a group of 5 elected board members, you're responsible for a $170 million budget. We're talking about very important and serious obligations that the 5 of you as elected board members have to ensure the fiscal health of the district. So as a management team and as a stakeholder group, we are responsible for creating proposed plans and strategies that are achievable and affordable, that meet the standard of making a difference while also being something that we can replicate year after year and afford to do moving down the line. As a group of committee members, we also talked a great deal about the lack of time and money currently devoted to professional learning, to professional development. So as a group, we all felt that every goal that the school board would create needed to have an element in there that talked about professional development and needed to have an element in there that talked about family and community engagement. So what's interesting about the feedback that this committee is giving to the board tonight is they're saying our building blocks for any goals that the 5 of you all end up creating for us are going to include data-informed decision-making, family and community engagement, professional development, shared or distributed leadership, and responsible fiscal support. So you all could create a wellness goal, and within that wellness goal, we'll need to specifically call out those building blocks. You all could create a teaching and learning goal, or an achievement goal, or an equity goal. It really, I mean, it's really up to the 5 of you to go through a process to decide what those goals are. And the strategic plan committee is essentially saying to the board and to the public, these are our building blocks for achieving any goal that you all would decide to put together. And that's what those identified need categories are about. Because remember, you're talking about close to 40 people that were in here month after month So we have literally the entire room papered in posters with our ideas and our feedback and our strategies. And what we tried to do was to coalesce those into bigger need categories. And that's where wellness came in, teaching and learning came in, achievement, pre-K readiness. And then during our session today, one of our committee members said, you know, it would be interesting to think of equity as the lens and not necessarily a need area, and to think about interventions as a strategy and not necessarily a need area. And there were a lot of heads shaking in the room at that comment. And so it really comes to the board as a package of a couple of different things. Those building blocks, what the group over time has identified as, from our perspective and our data analysis, the need areas. And then Peter, if you want to click forward to the next slide. We did a process today where we went through and we evaluated the strategic plan goals and the LCAP goals of 15 of the highest achieving districts in educating low income students. So we looked up test scores throughout the state of California to find districts that were excelling in meeting the needs of low income students, regardless of where they were in the state. And what you're looking at are goals for those districts. And there were actually, when we met earlier today, there were 4 categories. There were broad goals. That's the first column you see. There were longitudinal outcome goals. That's the second column you see. And then the third and fourth columns that we didn't include in this presentation, but is included in the agenda item for the meeting itself, which is also attached to this document or to this agenda item, is strategy specific goals and data-based goals. Because there are some districts that create goals that say, we will improve all students' scores on the CASP. We will reduce suspensions, right? So they choose a piece of data and they aim right at that piece of data. So what we did is we took this group through a process of talking about the kinds of goals that as a group we wanted to recommend to the board that you create goals that fit. Seppi, you're free to chime in here, but we couldn't really decide if we were saying like marry them together or partner them or hook them together. And Patrick and Sue, you were in the meeting today, so you're welcome to chime in too. There was, I don't know the right phrase or way to put it, but sort of like if they were only broad goals, that might not really hit the target. And if they were only longitudinal, that also might not get it done. I don't know what Seppi or Patrick or Sue, if you want to.
And if I may, let me just share that the group really wanted to recommend to the board to create broader goals that are also longitudinal, but leave the more specific goals to the action plan portion of the strategic plan. So that's really important to keep in mind as you think about setting goals in the next, as Diego said, in the next month or so, you'll be working on reviewing the report, the executive summary, and then coming together to develop the goal language and the goals. I don't know if Sue or Patrick wanted to add anything. Feel free to do so.
Yeah, I think Sepe, you explained it and so did you, Diego. I think the idea was that having a broad goal may not hold enough accountability because it's very broad in general, and that it was important to pair it with perhaps longitudinal, which would give sort of a more concrete goal and yet broad enough that the district could work towards it, and making sure that we are using data and we are able to identify the strategies that will best help us reach that longitudinal goal.
My only other comment would be that part of the discussion today too was timeliness, right? So building into this goal, the understanding that there is a time for it to be achieved within. So we've talked about that part of it too. So.
Mhm. So as we talk about setting goals for the board, and as you know, a major role of the board is to set the structure and set the direction for the district. And so the Board of Trustees really works on the what and what needs to happen. And the superintendent and staff work on the how, or the action plans, or the roadmap. And then the reports come back to you, the board, for review, for progress review. And it's a cycle that will continue to evolve. And so you'll continue to review to make sure that you're receiving and you're getting the outcomes that you wanted to achieve. And if not, then do you need to change course and what needs to happen? So the strategic plan is going to create that roadmap, very specific roadmap on the specific measures that need to happen, and the progress reports and the timeline of when each of the projects need to happen and be completed by, and who's going to work on which project and all that. What's really important here is that there needs to be a foundation of trust, that the board needs to really set the goals and in a way get out of the way of the creating of the action plans, and focus on that higher level strategic role, and trust the superintendent and the staff to come up with action plans that support those goals, and work with the individuals. And I have to tell you, I have worked with many different teams, and our strategic plan work group are exceptionally committed. And for everyone to show up every month and spend the morning with us and really contribute and have tough, difficult discussions and conversations and work so collaboratively and meet one another. That was really a wonderful outcome of this group coming together as well. So with that, I do have one more. And so on this slide, you have some goal language as well that you can refer to and look at. Again, this information along with the executive summary will give you all the information you need from the work group to come together at the next meeting and begin to develop the goals. On the next slide, as you can see, I wanted to really briefly touch on culture, because as you know, you can have the most wonderfully crafted strategic plan, and if your culture does not support it, nothing is going to happen. The strategic plan is going to sit on a shelf and collect dust, as we see with some strategic plans out there. So remembering and really ensuring that your culture is a positive, collaborative culture, and your focus is success and achievement for each and every one of your students. Remember Lillian Katz's quote, that we must care about everyone else's child just as much as we care about our own. And also this whole culture piece that plays a big role in sustainability of your strategic plan. The other area that the work group looked at was defining external and internal forces that could impact sustainability of the strategic plan. So they came up with a list of in 4 categories for external and internal forces that could impact it. So they have spent a great deal. They are eager to continue to work on this with Superintendent Ochoa. And I think everyone is eager and excited to see now the board's reaction to the report when you receive it, and also how you focus on the goals for the superintendent and staff to come up with action plans with. So that's all that I have for you. I don't know if you have any questions or comments, reflections. I don't know how much time is left. I apologize if I went over my allocated time, but that is all that I have for all of you.
Thank you so much, Sapita and Superintendent Ochoa. Do we have any clarifying questions from the board?
Sorry. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify the next steps. I know it's probably, you might mention at the end, but as a clarifying question, I'd love to ask. Thank you.
That is a great question. So once you have the report, you'll have all the information you need to hopefully over the winter break to review and before you meet next. And what is the date of the meeting, Diego, for the board in January? Because they are coming together to look at and work on asking the questions that after you receive the report, you may have questions. You may want to have discussions, and I'm sure that you will. And that will be your opportunity at that meeting. And then over the next two meetings, so January and February, that's when you review the report, ask the questions you may have discussions, and then begin to work on goal language for the goals that you want to set for your strategic plan. Remember the 3 goals recommended by the work group based on the need areas that were identified.
And Seppi, we talked about this before. Members of the board and I have had conversation about a possible board retreat in January also that would take place here in San Mateo and Foster City, in which the focus could be going deeper into this work as well. So we have had that conversation. These evening regular agendized meetings don't really give us a whole lot of time to go deep into it, but a specific governance / strategic plan retreat or special board meeting would definitely be for me a next step. And from there, the agendized meetings that we have coming up that are on our calendar for continued strategic plan work are January 27th and February 24th. Those are the next 2 meetings. The next step, when we get into that retreat special board meeting session, is for this board to have thought about and come to that meeting to, as a collective of 5, come together around the goal areas that you all as a board want to set us on a path for the next 5 years, and to think about and start talking through the kind of language you want your board of trustees as a collective to adopt for the district. The samples we gave you in this presentation show that there's a lot of different ways to describe it. So you as a group of 5 electeds, you need to debate that with each other, and you need to engage with each other about what's the right fit for us. Also want to reinforce the samples I gave you. Those are all districts that are doing great with kids who are low income. So even though their goal language is totally different, they're all achieving a similar outcome for students. So it puts us in a position as a board and superintendent to find what fits for us, to find that language that sounds like us, that fits for us, that makes sense for our community. And that would start to take place at that meeting, at that January 27th Board of Trustees meeting. I would ask that the board draft the language publicly here on the dais, and then allow a process in February of board community workshops, Café con Diego's, district parent survey, and bring it back to that February 24th meeting for any revisions, and adoption at that February 24th meeting of the goal language. At that point in time, our President Proctor would turn to me and say, Superintendent Ochoa, reconvene that strategic plan committee and create work groups to create the specific actions and strategies with timelines and metrics related to the goals we just adopted. Does that make sense? Then we need 60 days to do that. And we'll be back in your board meeting with some wonderful proposed goals and proposed strategies and actions, and we'll loop it into our equity work, and we'll loop it into our LCAP work, and it'll all be one finely tuned machine by then. Yeah.
Are there any additional questions before we move on? Okay. Peter, would you mind checking with the Zoom audience to see if there are any public comments on this item?
Absolutely. If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, so far we have 2. Shoshana, I hopefully said that correctly, and then afterwards will be Allison. So Shana, go ahead.
Hi there. I appreciate all the work you're doing on creating a strategic plan, and I'm looking at and seeing our biggest, most glaring failure is our complete lack of art and visual and performing arts education in the district. We spend 0 of our $170 million budgets on art education for elementary school, and we hire 0 visual and performing arts teachers. I'm looking at our goals of equity in a district where we fill it with Band-Aid programs, and schools that have money have visual and performing arts, and schools that don't can't even get a volunteer. And I'm hoping to see our strategic plan really boost and encourage the arts and some real changes coming out of this plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Shoshana. Okay, next we have Allison. Allison, go ahead.
Good evening, Superintendent Ochoa and Board of Trustees. I'll start with a quote. Art makes us better humans. Art is necessary in understanding the world, and art makes people happy. Undeniably, art is not optional. This is by Nathan Waya. He's an artist. We need funding, staffing, and support for the arts in our district elementary schools, which is currently in some schools offered once a month via Art in Action, and the funding is virtually non-existent, as Shoshana just said. Art is being taught by parent volunteers and has been for as long as I've been a part of this district. This is an equity issue. With no funding for art and staffed by parent volunteers, we must admit to the elephant in the room that parent volunteering is a privilege. I'll say it again, parent volunteering is a privilege. For those that don't need to work, or those that have flexible jobs or work from home where they can drop by school. A lot of schools in our district are struggling to get volunteers for art and to raise funds for art, particularly our Title I schools. The district funds art therapy. We know that art is therapeutic. We need art taught by professional teachers on a regular basis, more regular than once a month, for all students in the district. What is normal here in this district is not normal in other districts or other states. It's an affront to the teaching profession that we are having passionate yet untrained parents teach art in our schools. We can and must do better. I would like to take this opportunity to remind the board and Superintendent Ochoa that Measure B, which was approved in 2018, one of the selling points of that measure, which I and other parents advocated for, was to, and I quote from the current district website, quote, supporting art, drama, and music programs, unquote. In the elementary schools, I've seen 0 change in the level of art and performing arts funding, and it was approved 3 years ago. Art is still taught by parent volunteers. I know there is an accountability committee for Measure V, so I would like to know what money has been spent on art education from Measure V funds. Additionally, this topic has been discussed at various LCAT meetings over several years. I've been there, Shoshana's been there, with no progress. The time's now. So I'll leave you with this thought. Art instruction enables students to create and have the confidence and belief that they can create something of beauty. And when students gain this confidence, they learn that they can create in many mediums, whether that's writing, coding, visual art, performing art, or even to have the confidence to lead and create community. Please make art a priority in this district by making it a part of the strategic plan and asking for accountability with Measure V funds, with what was promised to the voters and taxpayers that supported Measure V. Trustee Warren said earlier in this meeting, we need artists in the world. I couldn't agree more, but let's make it happen, please, with real action. We've waited long enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Next, we have Annie. Then after Annie will be Marcella. Annie, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Annie Tsai. I just wanted to extend a big thank you to Superintendent Ochoa, as well as the facilitator through this whole process, Seppi, and everyone who participated in the strategic planning process. You know, as a parent to a child in the district, as well as someone who is representing the Education Foundation as a part of the strategic planning process. It was really wonderful to not only have a voice in the process, but also to be able to hear the perspectives of other stakeholders. That really matters a lot. We don't really often get exposure to that, so I appreciate that. We look forward to continuing this collaboration and really look forward to that next step, which is bringing the strategic plan to life from paper to action and then results. So thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Oops. Next, we have Marcella. After Marcella will be Randy. Marcella, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to add a note of appreciation as well. I do value the way that the strategic plan was developed. And so I do want to thank Superintendent Ochoa and also Sepide for walking us through the process. Having the opportunity to be on the strategic planning group as a parent, I think created space for voices that are not always at the table when these types of discussions are held. And I think we heard from two parents who felt very strongly about the need for art, the need for other spaces. And that also came up as part of the discussion for within the parent group and within multiple other stakeholders that were a part of the strategic plan. I value and appreciate the fact that we are making the recommendation to the board that you start with broad and longitudinal and give space for the strategic actions that will have the outcomes that those parents were talking about. And I think there are multiple spaces for us to have that dialogue, whether it is talking about making sure that access to art is equitable and is done in a way that is fair to all schools, or whether we're talking about music or science or any of the other aspects that need to be done. The heavy lifting, however, is going to be in a paradigm shift that needs to happen at all levels. So the big work is going to be the thinking about how we look at our students and how we look at what a just education looks like in this district. And managing it in the status quo is not going to be the way that we'll move forward. So I'm very excited about the people that were in that room, the discussions that we had, and I look forward to continuing to see that roll out in a way where we as a district are held accountable for the goals that we set out. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcella. Next, we have Randy. Randy, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I was another parent who was invited to be part of this engagement for the strategic plan. And I want to also echo my thanks for Superintendent Ochoa and for Cepeda for just the process and the thoughtfulness around that process. And I just want to echo a couple of phrases that Cepeda offered to the board in her introductory comments. A couple of things that stood out to me were when she advised you to trust and also to be able to let go. And I just want to, be a witness as someone who was in that room for all of those sessions for the entire time, that the process that went into, this entire packet that you're going to get and all of this content was very, very collaborative, very healthy discussion. And I didn't hear a single parent, a single person say, what about my kid? What I heard and what the focus was exactly as these two initial parents who spoke to you and addressed you about art. They didn't come to you about their kids. They came to you to speak to you tonight about equity for all kids and access for all kids in the district. And that was the spirit that these discussions happened in. And so please know that these many hours that we spent in that room, the discussions were had in that spirit. And so please be willing to view those through that lens. Thank you for your time and thank you for your commitment to this.
Thank you, Randy. President Proctor, there are no other hands for public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you. We will come back to the board for board comments. Who would like to speak?
Okay, I'll go. Thank you for everyone who provided their comments. And thank you for the presentation and the facilitation. I'm really excited to see the process and the collaboration and all the hard work that everyone's put into this. I'm excited to get the draft document. Will be our reading over winter break. And I'm excited to start diving into the details from our perspective and where we go from there. And thank you, Superintendent Ochoa, for laying out the next steps and understanding that this is still a months-long process, as it should be. So the one comment that I have, and again, I know that Trustee Corzo had mentioned it and Superintendent Ochoa, but coming off of the California School Boards Association conference, the keynote speaker, and when I look at the presentation and the broad comments that were made, the one thing is, we always talk about achievement and everything else, but the one that currently stands out to me at the moment is the one under teaching and learning, which is believe every child can learn and we can teach all children. And the reason why I'll just bring this up was because of the keynote speaker, the way that he was able to achieve was because he had a teacher who was there who didn't identify him as at risk or someone who wouldn't be able to actually perform, who actually fought for him and actually believed that no, he can be taught. And he was a great success story. And to me, like, I know we'll go through all these at a later date, but I'll just say that this one resonates with me at this very moment, just because of that keynote. And there's so many different things that we take away from the conference, but when I look at how simple this is, and in some ways how it doesn't have a lot of our normal verbiage about like CASP and you know, chick survey and all these other, you know, verbiage that we always put in. This is just something that's very basic, and it kind of goes back also to when we started the school year. We had all of us had the opportunity to speak in front of the administrators, and you know, my theme was sort of like moving from a deficit mindset to a growth mindset. And this kind of plays into it, because the thinking that, you know our teachers are there for every student, but the idea this is sort of reinforces it. And I just, again, it was very moving, very powerful. And this statement just really speaks to me at this moment. So I know that we're going to have lots of time to talk about all this stuff, but I just wanted to bring that up since the keynote speaker was mentioned earlier. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing a little bit more about process and, you know, kind of, yeah, all of, I know that everyone invested a lot of time and a lot of energy into the process to making, and it sounds like, I mean, I think one of the most telling signs is that we had multiple people who were involved today share about how meaningful the process was and how appreciative they were. And so I'm grateful to all of you for being involved, for taking the time, and for everyone that, you know, was invested in planning it. I know that we have been hoping to really have a strategic plan for a couple of years now, and haven't had one. And so I'm just really excited to have us as a district, as a board, as a district team, as, you know, just everyone in the community to really know where we're going, and for, you know, our district to get really clear on how we're going to get there, and you know, for us to be able to support that work, to reach these goals. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to receiving the report, to digging into working on developing some really meaningful goals together. And I'm just immensely grateful for all of the stakeholders that were involved in this process, and for the insights that you're going to be bringing to us from your individual experiences and perspectives. Also grateful for the additional public comments tonight, and, you know, the comments I'm sure that we will continue to receive as we go through this process that will help to inform where we go and what where we go and what goals we set. And I know will also inform the district in terms of thinking about how they'll get there. So I know there will be many, many more discussions on this over the next couple months, so keep it brief.
I just I'm feeling a lot of gratitude right now as well, just for all of the folks that have put so much time into this. I think back to, what was it, 3 years ago, when we went through like the mission and vision as a board, and I just think about that process and how it was a very different process then. I absolutely think that it was necessary and it was important, but this process, I think, is it's not just like top down. I think it's really shows a lot of it. I feel like it shows how much progress our district has made, and how the conversation is very different than it was, let's say, 5 years ago. I'm just so grateful for this journey, and for you know, the fact that we will very soon in the next several months have finally a strategic plan that, you know, 5 years in the future. I mean, I just think about, you know, what has happened in 5 years, and this is really just really setting in stone all of the many conversations that we as a board have had over the past several years, you know, really long conversations, really wanting to elevate equity in education for all students. And this is, I think, you know, where it becomes very, very real. And now we I feel like the work is going to come together really quickly moving forward. Like I'm hoping to really see just big gains for our kids. And I'm just, again, just super grateful that we have buy-in from all parts, basically all levels of our district and our community for this work. Yeah, I'm very happy about it. And I also just want to say that, you know, there were some comments about art, and I really believe that art and music are essential for young people and for healing and for like really meeting the needs of like the whole child. So I think, you know, I heard those comments and that's on top for me. I think it's just, you know, also like some of our schools have gardens and that space also is very healing. And for me, it really lifts up like Indigenous traditions and how in Indigenous cultures, that is very much like the center of building community and support. So yeah, I'm just excited. I'm thinking just a lot about like what we'll see, what kids will be able to experience, and the support that they'll get in the next 5 years. And I'm so ready, and I'm sure our kids are. So thank you all for your work, and we will get that report, and then we will do our work. We'll read the report. We'll do our part of it, but this strategic plan is really, you know, it's our entire district and community really on the same page about what we want to do, and so that makes it so much more powerful. And I'm really excited about it. Thank you.
Okay. Sepida and Superintendent Ochoa, let's see if I can get my words out. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's so information packed, and you know, it's very, very, very evident that there has been a lot of work put into this. I appreciate the fact that we didn't just go to one group of people. We didn't just go to employees. We didn't just go to us, the board members. We didn't just go to the principals, but we made an effort to include as many different types of people in this, in creating this plan, in creating these recommendations. And, you know, Sepida, one of the things I as I'm reviewing my notes from your presentation, I'm going back to that quote that you opened everything up with by Lillian Kantz. Each of us must come to care about everyone else's children. I mean, the rest of it's great, but I even think that just that one sentence can be all on its own. That's where what we need to be all about. You know, us on the board, you know, we have put forth that, you know, very publicly, you know, that we're not just here for our individual kids, but for the almost 11,000 students within our school district. You know, I'm looking at our principals who each have, you know, 3 to 800-900 kids, depending upon the size of the school, that they're responsible for, and they're taking ownership of their education. I look at our teachers, I look at our PTA, I look at our art and action volunteers, who I am pretty sure we probably heard from a few of them tonight. There's so many concerns, and everybody wants to have a piece and have a part of owning what this plan is going to look like, and owning what the education will look like for our almost 11,000 students. And then the students that are coming up. I mean, let's not forget them. Let's not forget our preschoolers. I mean, I don't even know if 11,000 includes the preschool programs that we have, because that's a whole nother group of kids as well that, you know, we're directly responsible for educating and bringing up as members of San Mateo and Foster City as community members. Some of the other notes that I just want, and I hope that we can keep in the forefront of our mind, is the trust piece. We have to trust in the people who are on this committee. We have to be able to trust in the people that we have in our superintendent position and our assistant superintendent position. It is hard. I don't know about anybody else, but I know myself, I'm a control freak, and it is very difficult to step out of the way and let the process happen. And I know I myself am very grateful for this reminder, and thank you so much for saying it so gently, Sapita. I know sometimes I don't say it that gently, but yeah, getting out of the way and letting it happen is, I think, exactly how you said it. And I think that that's a good reminder for all of us, is we have our piece and we have our part to own, and we have to let the other people own their part and take their part. And, you know, we can all own our piece, but we have to let the process happen. And as you said, trust the process and get out of the way. You know, listening to the public comment about art in art education, you know, I know, you know, that used to be so like there in forefront. I mean, how many schools had kilns? You know, how many of us made weird clay projects for their parents? Or maybe that was just what we did in Sacramento. I don't know, be Central Valley. But art is such an important, you know, there's so many lessons, there's so many, you know, things that can be learned through working with your hands, or the visual process, or, you know, we talk about wanting to do, you know, create opportunities with our Educator block grant, you know, for trauma-informed services. Well, art is one way to manage and work through trauma. So I am excited to hear people wanting to make sure that that's not forgotten as well, and have a little bit more of an equitable opportunity for that to occur, not just at schools with volunteers who can deliver art in action, not just in schools with PTAs that participate in the reflections competition every year, but, you know, our Title I schools where we have parents working 3 jobs just to keep a roof over their families' heads too. You know, schools with PTAs who may have an annual budget of maybe $1,000 a year. You know, those experiences exist in our district. And are those children any less deserving of having those opportunities than those who may not have those constraints? And I'm just really glad that we're looking at this and talking about this. And I hope that the conversation continue to be as respectful as it seems to have been.
Okay, I'm going to just make a couple of brief comments. One being that I really want to thank the 32 people that are on this this committee. I looked at the list. I don't know every single person, but the people that I do know are thoughtful, strategic thinkers that I know are really invested in making sure that all of our students are successful. And so I thank everyone for their time and dedication to this process. And Sapita, I want to thank you for your role in guiding us through this. And I really want to thank Superintendent Ochoa for your leadership. This is something that, you know, when we went through the interview process of finding the perfect superintendent for our school district, this is something that was important to us. You really hit the ground running. I'm really excited about this process, and it feels like a really organic, genuine plan that we're partnering with the community, partnering with the board, and everyone in the district. So I think it's really great to see. I do believe that you know, it takes a culture shift to make this happen. I also think that a strategic plan like this is, maybe it's a 5-year plan, but it's also setting the tone for many years to come, because once you kind of get on this ride, you know, we're gonna 5 years from now have a new plan. And so I think that this is really something that is going to make a huge difference for our school district. So I just want to thank everybody for everybody that's involved and that is supporting this process, and can't wait to hear more. Are there any last comments on this item, or else we can move on? Okay.
President Proctor, may I
Yes.
just, before I leave, I am going
Absolutely.
to leave and let you manage your business. Just thank you for the opportunity to go on this journey with the strategic plan group and with all of you. I look forward to working with you. I just want to say I am super impressed with the commitment of the work group, as well as the fact that your superintendent was able to gather 32 individuals representing different stakeholder groups in such short time. He has not been there for a year yet. And to me, as a facilitator, and I have the pleasure of working with many different teams, the ability to bring people together to create this strategic plan from ground up is really remarkable. So thank you all. Thank you, Superintendent Ochoa, and thank you, fabulous board, for doing what you do, for balancing home and work, serving on the board. As a former board member, I really appreciate what you do. Have a great night, happy holidays, and I will be sharing with you the report.
Thank you so much. Okay, we will move on to 12.2, California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly Nomination Approval.
Here, let me just unmute here. Thank you so much. Tonight's agenda item related to the CSBA Delegate Assembly Nomination Approval is in reference to the board nominating and ultimately recommending one of your trustees, one of your colleagues, Noelia Corzo, Trustee Corzo, to serve, to basically run for election for the CSBA Delegate Assembly. These nominations are being accepted until January 7th, 2022. Once the board would potentially take action at this meeting, then Trustee Corzo will work with myself and Tatiana Sandoval to complete the necessary paperwork to get it all submitted. And this is an opportunity for our school board to have a voice on CSBA and to be connected to the work of the Delegate Assembly. So our recommendation is that the Board of Trustees nominate Trustee Corzo for this Region 5, Subregion 5-B to run for election for the CSBA Delegate Assembly.
Great. Are there any clarifying questions about this? Okay.
I have one. How does this work with your run for Board of Supervisor? I don't know if I'm supposed to ask it directly to you. I've never done this before. I've just like knowing that this is a 2-year commitment and that the election is in this coming November. I was just wondering like how everything would work out.
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of background. So I actually already a delegate. I was appointed by the our Region 5 director, Lisa McAvoy, out of Redwood City Elementary School District. So I'm already serving in this capacity, and I would be a delegate, and I mean, pending the outcome of the election, if let's say, you know, I win that election, then I would resign as a delegate, and then either someone else could be nominated, or Lisa would make another appointment.
So in other words, this is just going from appointment to an actual election at this point.
Yes.
Just so I understand more clearly. Thank you.
Peter, would you mind checking if there's any members of the public that would have any comments on this item?
Absolutely. If there's any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, are there any comments from the board?
No comments, but I'll make the motion to nominate Trustee Corzo to be our delegate.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Chin for the motion and Trustee Watkins for the second. All those in favor, please unmute and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that you're approved unanimously. And by the way, thank you for doing that work. We went to the CSB a conference, and Noelia is very busy. She's involved in a lot of things, and this is just one more thing that we really appreciate you taking this on. So thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 13, board member statements and requests for future agenda items.
I'll be really quick here. I just want to say happy holidays to everybody, that everyone, I mean, it's been like a crazy couple of years, and I know it's been a very intense fall with being back on site and having to make adjustments once again. And so just to all the educators and staff and students and families, and just thank you so much for your commitment. And I hope that all of you get some good time off, some time with family and friends to rest and relax. And we're so grateful for you and looking forward to seeing you in the new year. So.
Thank you all. Also, just wish everyone happy holidays and a restful break. And I'm sure all of the kiddos in our district will be enjoying lots of Christmas movies and, or, any kind of holiday movies, and enjoying time at home with their families. I also just wanted to read a quote because, the conversations that we've had just reminded me of this quote, and it's one of my favorite quotes. I'm sure everyone here has heard it several times before, but I want to share it again. I'm feeling inspired. So the quote is from Leela Watson, and here it goes. If you have come to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. Thank you.
I will just echo the happy holidays, and I just want to thank everybody, Superintendent Ochoa and the executive team and everyone, including all the administrators, the teachers, classified and certificated staff, everyone in our district, as well as the community. I hope you all have a happy holidays. This year was crazy, absolutely. And just thinking about 1 year ago, about now, we weren't even in school in person. We were all worried still. I think vaccinations had just come out for the emergency staff, right? Emergency and first responders. But it was a crazy year. And I just want to thank everybody for everything that they've done. I am super excited that, when Governor Newsom did talk about the light at the end of the tunnel, I honestly feel like we're reaching it. I mean, I know we have Omicron coming up, but in reality, thanks to our vaccination clinics, where we had, 751 families come for our vaccination. We have another vaccination event at College Park coming up, 3 days. And I'm just very excited about that. So I wish everyone happy holidays, be safe, be healthy, and please rest up for the next year, which I am very optimistic will be a much better year than this year for everyone. So thank you, everybody.
Okay, I will be brief, but I wanted to just say that I was so nervous that I'd mess up this whole meeting that I didn't get a chance to properly thank Trustee Chen for being president for the last year during a very difficult year for our school district. And I just wanted to thank you for your leadership, and thank the rest of the board for trusting me to be the president this year. I'm really looking forward to all of us working together, all 6 of us as a governance team, and all of us in the district doing all of the great work for our kids. I just want to wish everyone a happy holidays. Looking forward to seeing everyone in 2022, and everyone be safe and have a great break. Item number 14 is future meeting dates.
There we go. And we have regular school board meetings, January 13th and January 27th. We recommend holding, as we said, a special board meeting. The date that we had looked at was January 25th. That through a email communication and checking dates, we can always make adjustments to that date. But that would get us that time before that January 27th school board meeting. So that's what we have tentatively on the calendar. Those January 13th and January 27th dates are locked in. And then we would recommend a 25th of January meeting as a special board meeting. But again, we would work with the board to find a date and finalize that date moving forward.
Great, thank you. Is it possible to send a doodle or something around for other dates?
Sounds like it's possible. Okay, then we'll move on to item 15.1 adjournment. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins for the motion, Trustee Chin for the second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, we're adjourned at 9:30.